What's up, Rick with RallySport Direct, and today we're continuing building our Volkswagen GTI. Now we've got it here behind me, and before we did exhaust, but I've really been wanting to do suspension, and Eibach hooked it up with some springs and sway bars. I figured might as well do both. I'm really interested to see, one, how much it drops, because I've heard the Eibach springs drop the car quite a bit, and I'm excited to see how it looks. And then two, just the handling that we get from the springs and the sway bar. I imagine it's gonna make quite a difference. And I just went out and tested, did some, a little bit of a slalom, just to kind of get some before and after feedback and data from the car. So either way, I'm gonna stop rambling. Let's just jump right into it. All right, first things first, we have to get this car up in the air, get the wheels off, and then we can look at the suspension, because I kind of have an idea of how to install the springs and sway bars, but I've never done it before, so we will find out. And then here are the springs and sway bars, and then we'll get those popped open here in a minute once we get the car up in the air and kind of get everything sorted out. So let's get started on this guy.
Day in, day out, it's the same road we're walking down.
Little problem I actually noticed just the other day on the lift is this lock won't engage, which is kind of sketchy. So you see how that's supposed to jam down in there. So as soon as you lift the lift up, these slide down, get pushed into that. So I think what I need to do is loosen those up, push this back a little bit, and hopefully that should fix that. So let's do that real quick. Safety first, right?
Same job, same town, 'cause we've been taught that's the way our world goes round. Walking.
So we got everything fixed on this. Now you can see that that lock is properly engaged. And basically what can happen is if those locks aren't working properly and the car starts rocking this way, these arms can flip out and then the car comes crashing down on you. Now, I don't know, it's a weird feeling being underneath like a 3,000-pound car and realizing that at any moment, if something on the lift fails, that thing will come down and it will kill you very, very quickly, or at least leave you, stuck, pinned underneath and crying like a little girl for someone to come help you. So it feels a lot better to have that taken care of. Now we can lift this thing up, get the wheels off, and look at the suspension. All right, so here's what we're looking at. So I had a chance to look over everything, and of course it uses some funky, I think they call those what do they call it, like tri-square or something? I can't remember. I don't have those, so I just ordered a set of those. And then of course, like Ford, uses like the squish type, so we'll have to separate that knuckle to get the strut out. And then the sway bar itself, I'm guessing I'm gonna have to lower the subframe if it's anything like Ford. It looks like it's a tight fit in there. Getting the actual sway bar mounts off is super easy. It's just 2 bolts on the bottom. But then for right now though, while we're waiting for tools, I can remove the end link and at least get that free. And then once the tools get here, we can start removing the strut. I might look up a video on how to do this, because I'm sure there's some things that I'm not aware of. I've never worked on a Volkswagen before, so that might not be a bad idea. And maybe while I'm waiting for the tools, I'll just kind of poke around the internet, see what people have to say, see if there's gonna be any issues I'm gonna run into, and then we'll just start digging into this thing. These gave me literally no trouble at all. I didn't even have to put a Allen key in there or anything like that. So all the nuts are hand loose, and then we'll just wait for the tool, and then we'll get these struts off. O'Reilly special right here. So they're called triple square bits, which is very funky. I don't like having to buy tools, but you know what? If it's what we need, it's what we need. So let's get this strut removed. I guess in order to get this damper out of the spindle, obviously this whole assembly has to come down, but it can't because the axle's already maxed out at full droop. So it won't allow it to go down any further. So we actually have to go in there with more tri-square or whatever it's called, and take those off. And then I've also heard that people say removing the lower ball joint, these 3 bolts or nuts right there, will also allow that to come down a little bit further. So let's go ahead and do that.
On the grounds we've always known, stepping on the footprints in the snow. But when it must, the other ways will show. We're gonna make the footsteps on our own. That life can wait, just for a while. That life can wait, so take that aside and just go.
All right, both front struts are out. There's the new springs. I know that they say you're supposed to use a spring compressor, and I do have a spring compressor, but I think I'm just gonna gung-ho it, and we'll try it on one, and we'll see what happens. All right, here we go. So, this is kind of scary. I'm hoping it hits the Eibach box, so we'll see. Weak. Yeah, most springs are like that. So we'll do this one too. I don't know why everyone gets so freaked out about them. Now some of them are pretty gnarly, so you use, I always recommend using spring compressor, but we don't need to on this one. That's how you do it, boys. Like a man. Those are installed. That's really good. So now I want to see if I can potentially sneak the sway bar out without having to lift up the subframe or drop the subframe. I don't know if I'm going to be able to, but I'm certainly going to give it a shot. So let's try that real quick. Nope, gotta drop the subframe. Yeah. All right, old sway bar is out. New sway bar is about ready to go in. Look at the size difference between those two. So we've got the subframe dropped. Everything went okay, I guess. It was a little bit of a struggle getting that sway bar out. But once we get that new one in, everything should go pretty smoothly getting it all bolted back up. So we have the subframe on. Sway bar still needs to be hooked up via end links. We need to put the struts on. But the hard part, in my opinion, is done because that subframe was a nightmare and getting that sway bar out was a nightmare. So we're back and we're ready to rock and roll. Hopefully we can get this done today. So let's just jump right into this. right, update. We've got the axles back in, which is good, both sides, and they were a huge pain to get back in, but I've got them, and struts are all mounted in. So now we just need to hook up the sway bars, put in these big strut bolt on the bottom, and tighten up the top, and then the front should be done. So, and then we can move on the rear, but let's get these things all bolted up. Those look pretty freaking awesome. Here we go. The front is done. I apologize about the sound. My mic ran out of battery, so we're just gonna have to deal with it. But we got the sway bars, end links, springs, and now it's time to move on to the rear. The rear should be significantly easier, mainly because all we have to do is drop the control arm, and then once the control arm's dropped, the sway bar should be a lot easier to get out as well, and everything should just go much quicker. I might have to drop the exhaust, but we'll see. So let's just bounce into this one.
Fireflies, a million little pieces, feeds the dying light and brings me back to life.
Well, that went very quickly. So springs are loose, those will just pop right out, sway bars off, and then I just had to take that spring out to get the sway bar out. But here's the sway bar in its correct orientation, and then we'll need to use, because this started spinning, so it's a little, again, specialty bolt. We'll use that, get the end links off, put on the new bushings, get the sway bar up, installed, and then we can install the springs.
In your eyes, I see something to believe in. Your hands are like a flame, your palms are sweet as pain. Let the darkness lead us into the light. Let our dreams get lost, feel the temperature rise. Baby, tell me one more beautiful lie. One touch and I ignite, like a starship speeding into the night. You and I get lost in the infinite light.
Sway bar's ready to go. Hardest thing was getting these mounts off those stock bushings. I found that using that big hammer right there is definitely the easiest way. So let's get this thing installed.
So alive, your touch is like a daylight, burning on my skin. It turns me on again. You and I, survivors of the same kind, but we're the only ones dancing on the side. Let the darkness lead us into the light. Let our dreams get lost, feel the temperature rise. Baby, tell me one more beautiful lie. One touch and I ignite, like a starship speeding into the night. You and I get lost in the infinite light.
It's done. Well, almost. We got everything installed. Springs, sway bars, everything front and rear. So now we just need to put on the wheels and tires, and then we will be done. So let's go ahead and do that.
And just
Done. Everything is done. Look how low that is. That makes a huge difference. Now the only thing is now you kind of have like a sunk look. So I think wheel spacers might be next on the list. I think that looks freaking awesome. Just a very aggressive stance. Definitely lowered it quite a bit more than I thought it was going to. But let's go take it for a test drive and see what we think. All right, so today is Monday. I finished the install up on Friday. I was really wanting to do this kind of like post review on Friday afternoon, but it just didn't happen. But one good thing is we got the car aligned this morning, and so I can give you guys a review, you know, with a proper alignment, because obviously anytime you mess with the suspension, and alignment is highly recommended. Now, I've been driving this car for a little bit. Honestly, it feels pretty stockish when you're just cruising along, which is stock, but as I said in the previous videos, I wanted it to be stiffer, and it is stiffer, so I got my wish there, but I wish it was just a little bit stiffer. Like if you were to jump in this car and you didn't know anything about it, you wouldn't necessarily think that it had aftermarket suspension on it, which again can be both good and bad, but it's just something to be aware of. Now, handling wise, this is where we really see a nice improvement, because the Swaybars, you know, just the quick dartiness, you don't get that body roll squishing down in and stuff like that. You just get like instant, you know, just side to side. It's very darty, which is phenomenal. Now, cornering wise, this is where something else kind of gets in its way. So we've got a corner up here, throw it in, and you just get a lot of tire squeal, and there we go. So basically, I do feel like the suspension gives better handling. Now I think it's the tires that are kind of the weak point in the whole thing. And that's because before, the suspension would kind of load up, and you would feel it load up, and between the suspension and the tires, you could kind of feel when they were going to break away. Now you don't really get that. You just get, you know, the suspension is very sharp and very crisp, but the tires are just, and they just wash out, and you get a lot of tire squeal. That's the only downside to that. So I think better tires would be a no-brainer. Now, we did a before and after suspension video, which you guys can see here. Now, this is just, you know, I wanted to see kind of what it was going to look like body roll wise, and the Swaybars are going to be the main killer of body roll, and I love how much body roll they've removed from this car. It just, that alone makes a big difference, and you don't really feel the Swaybars just driving straight, but as soon as you know, give it one of these, then you instantly feel those Swaybars. And then the springs themselves, you know, I assume attribute a little bit to the body roll or lack thereof, but it's mainly going to be, you know, lower center of gravity, a little bit better handling, but then just looks, holy cow, does this car look low. It's very low. Now, it can benefit greatly, I feel like, in the looks department with some, you know, aftermarket wheel spacer or something like that. Maybe 20 mil, 25 mil, even 10 millimeter would kind of keep that more factory look of, like, you know, the wheel sunk in just a little bit. But I think 20 to 25 millimeter would make that nice flush appearance and really, really set this car off look-wise, because it is, as the kids say, sunk, right? And it is very apparent that it's sunk. And, you know, that's not necessarily a problem. But if you're going with aftermarket springs, chances are you want the car to look quite a bit better. And so maybe factor in some wheel spacers there. Now, I will say, after I did the install, I looked up some stuff on the internet. And I know this is going to be in the comment section. I was supposed to buy new bolts. There are a few bolts doing this whole thing that I was supposed to buy brand new from Volkswagen. And I know, especially the people who want to hate are going to be jumping in the comment section almost instantly after the install and saying like, oh, you should have bought new bolts, you're an idiot, blah, blah, blah. And they're right. But you know what? Let me be the canary in the coal mine, if you will. And if this fails, then I'll let you guys know, and we'll go from there. I don't think it's going to. Maybe it will. I don't know Volkswagen. But again, I didn't read through the entire thing. I guess I've never worked on a Volkswagen. I just assumed it was like most cars, and you can just reuse bolts, because why would you have torque to, or stretch to yield, or torque to yield, or whatever they're called, bolts? But then again, it's Volkswagen. They do lots of weird things. So anyway, let's just clear that up. Next, the install. That's the only downside to this entire thing. I love the way the car looks, love the way it handles, love the way it rides. But the install, holy crap, was that a pain. And I apologize for not doing kind of more like in between little like catch you up on what's going on videos. I was just pissed off, and I just wanted to get it done. I was worried I wasn't going to get this done in time, and so I was just trying to rush through it. And honestly, I was getting a little frustrated installing it. And, you know, I know if I had more experience doing this, now I could probably do it again in a lot less time. But if it is your first time installing springs or Swaybars on a Volkswagen, give yourself an easy 2 days. And when I say easy, I don't mean like wake up at, you know, 7 and work on it till midnight. I mean, wake up, work on it, start on it at 9, and you're done at like 5, you know, and then the next day you work on it for a few more hours, and then it's done. Because if you don't, you're going to be in a rush. So just to let you know, it does take a while. You do have to drop the subframe. Lots of little things have to go on. You have to remove the axles. It's finicky, but it's done. It's not hard. I could do it again pretty easily, but I was getting frustrated during that whole process, because it's a little bit frustrating having to remove everything when you feel like it shouldn't be like that, but it is. So just keep that in mind. And then with the bolt situation, you know, just factor in the price of new bolts when you do the springs and or sway bars. But honestly, if you were to go this route, I'd say springs, big yes, sway bars, yes, but maybe start with just the rear. However, having the front suspension off the car already does make this, you know, if you're going to do sway bars, that would be a good time to do front sway bar because everything's kind of out and off and out of the way. So it's kind of a toss-up, but the rear is so easy to install that I would just say, like, even if your very first suspension mod was just a sway bar, just do the rear one. It'll make a big difference. So anyway, we're going to wrap that up. Hopefully I'll be able to get this video edited and out to you guys tonight, and then we were going to start on our big project, but that got pushed back a week because I've got a lot of little things in between now and then. Tomorrow I'll be working on something, cough, carbon fiber stuff, whatever. Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. Really appreciate it, and we will see you guys the next time. Bye-bye.